people and keyhole people. Show you got heart. Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring. Learning how to make a virtual a business boring. Showing up every morning, ready for the show. I'ma get ready. Cold engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
All right, good afternoon. You are listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. If you are listening to this live, do us a favor, hit subscribe, share, like, comment, let us know that you're here. If you want all the episodes, we have a new one that releases every Wednesday. Go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Again, engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Man, there's over 150 of these podcasts. So for those who are podcasting, it's cool because I'm on the later stage of that, which is that now I'm starting to get numbers, right? Numbers of like over 100 podcasts, and we're currently scheduled out already. We have podcasts ready all the way to the end of 2025. So it's just like set it and forget it. And most of all, I just want you to be one of my guests here. We have the Engaging Conference. If you are somebody who wants to be engaging, you want to host a meeting that's engaging, a conference, a summit, or masterclass, come see us here. We're going to show you all the latest techniques and technology to do that. I have 3 Hall of Fame speakers. You can get a free ticket or one of our VIPs here at engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON for a conference. All right, now, my next guest, so exciting. She's a captivating, entertaining storyteller, inspiring audiences to take action and feel 100% bigger. Do you want to feel 100% bigger? You better hurry up. Her method is rooted in neuroscience, psychology, physiology, and is scientifically proven to increase confidence, develop a memorable and energetic presence. We both were actually in real life at MPI, Meeting Professional International's World Education Congress. Let's give a warm welcome to Christy Renee Stehle. Hey, Christy, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you, John?
Fantastic. Great to have you here. So good to see you. Oh, look, now I see your, I didn't see you the last minute ago, your 4 agreements book in your corner there. Very
Oh,
nice.
yes, yes.
So, so good. So what's happened to you since WC? WC, Jesus, feels like it's been a year ago, even though it was like, what, a month or two ago?
Yeah, it's crazy that it's been about 2 months. I think the 8 weeks since, I mean, I've seen explosive growth in my business and just my personal life too. I've had a lot of chaos personally, but I'm at a more peaceful place with it than I've ever been. So that's a huge win. And then I think that that translates into business growth as well, because I'm like showing up every day, like I'm ready for it. Like y'all can't take me down. Let's go. And having some really, no, I'm telling you, like overcoming resistance and adversity, that is what really makes great transformation and big things possible. And so I've seen a lot of that. I've also had a lot of great connections since WEC, meeting with some really interesting people and getting featured in great places. So it's been a power-packed 8 weeks for sure.
Power packed. Well, to
Power-packed.
me, I think you have to have chaos to have change. Like when you have a system in stasis, it doesn't want to change, let alone it doesn't change. So, it's training yourself to be excited about chaos as opposed to being freaked out about chaos. So,
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's your perspective on it, right? And so I've been coming to difficult situations like being hacked, for instance, and getting locked out of Meta as I'm writing my book and
oh,
sitting
that's
down. All
right.
my stories are on Facebook. Like, let me sit down and pull them. And look, I'm locked out and I can. And really just keeping this perspective of how can this be a good thing and what can I learn from this? And so it showed me that I wasn't as protected in places that mattered. For instance, my Google Drive, I hadn't connected that. I have my life's unpublished work on there. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I just didn't lose this. Woke up the next morning, started getting into it. And, it really just ended up being a good thing because I learned
Hmm.
basically, I'm saying that I'm like a master. I could give a master class in criminal or cybersecurity now. Cybersecurity. I'm like, ooh, I've learned so much. And so it's really just keeping that perspective of how can this be a good thing? And it does, it leads to change.
Well, speaking of change, let's find out for my friends. Let's change them immediately by introducing them to you. Why don't you take a moment, Christy, and say who you are and what you do in this world?
Well, my name is Christy Renee Stehle. I go by Christy or Christy Renee. Christy Renee is my pen name, and so I've expanded that into my speaking work as well. John will link my website, christyrenee.com. You can find me and learn more about me there. But in essence, I am a storyteller at heart. And so that manifests in different ways, right? I'm a writer, I'm an author, I've been a creative director, brand strategist, speaker. I've done video editing. So, really, anything that is, in its essence, story captivates me and is what I work on. So, storytelling, and, I don't want to take too much time on this question because the who are you question, I don't know if you intend this to be as existential, did I say that right, as it is, but existential. Who am I,
Yeah.
right? We have this idea of putting labels on ourselves or having job titles, this, that, and the other. And there's been a lot of unpacking that in my life and just getting down to the core of who I am. And I love that storyteller still is me without putting a label on myself or what I do. So I have a story for everything. And at one point, I thought that that was a bad thing. And I've loved, as I've grown, to see all of the many ways that story is so valuable in business and personal life.
All right, let's start in this one piece, which is story is a bad thing. Who taught who's how did that happen?
Okay, well, not that story is a bad thing, but having a story for everything, right? And this was back in a time when I wasn't around maybe the best people. My story is definitely of overcoming a lot. And I was told I was too much for a long time. Too much, too many words. Now I think that's a great thing. I've got, so much energy. I'm very dynamic. I've got a story for everything, which means I can connect and resonate very easily with so many different people because story is what connects us, right? So I see it as an absolutely good thing. But yes, I was told that.
Oh, I understand the too much. I mean, like I have the belief too. I'm not for everybody, that's for sure. All right. And then you got to get your own belief at that, which is like, too much for who? Too much for what? Right.
Mm.
And so when then is the second realization going either you accept that you're too much or you at least become comfortable with exactly who you are. When did that happen?
It happened over a period of time for sure. I had the opportunity. So I spent 2015 through 2019 out of the country. I lived in 35 different countries at that time, and I'd sold everything. I'd had a lot of health challenges that I overcame. And I was like, you know what? Health is our greatest wealth. Time is our greatest resource. You are not going to stop me. And I set sail with a one-way ticket. I put tenants in the home and sold everything I owned. And while I was on that journey, about halfway through, the boyfriend that I had had since childhood and I decided to go our separate ways. And so perhaps, when you said too much for who, you know, so I was ended up in Bali. I spent 9 months there, and that was an incredible place to heal and get really in touch with yourself. So I did a lot of self-actualization work and release and really just getting to meet myself I was in a 14-year relationship. So from the time I was 16 to
Woo,
31, I did
woo.
not develop myself as a young woman. And I don't have regrets in life because everything happens as it should. But somebody once told me, they put it this way, they were like, that's trauma. And I was like, I don't think you're wrong. Um, so being able to step into who I was as a young woman without anybody else by her side, forming opinions, telling her who she should be or what she should look like. Um, it took a while. It was more than those 9 months in Bali, but it began there, and I was able to, really it probably began in Bali. And I think when I showed up at my parents' doorstep in November in Atlanta, so it's cold. I have one suitcase of tattered summer clothes to my name, show up at my parents' doorstep, broke in winter. But I'd realized that I'd gone all these places and I showed back up and I had what I'd been looking for. I knew myself. I had
Mm.
everything and nothing in that moment because I knew who I was. And that was something I had spent years, not having. So very long journey, but worth it.
That's a great line. I would keep that, which is I have everything and nothing.
Mm.
Right. And so,
It's inside of
uh,
us. Sometimes we just have to go to the other side of the world to find it, but it's always within us for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to. That's a belief I definitely have, which is, everything we need to solve a problem is within us, somewhere within our
Mhm.
reach, within our grasp, and that's kind of how I approached COVID with that. So, well, I want to go into this hacked on Facebook. A lot of people have gotten hacked, but I'm just curious what you want to share from that experience. I'm in the computer field, and always have had that deep sinking feeling like when you destroy a computer or you reformat something so you can't access anything anymore, right? And it's really you have there's it's kind of Buddhist, right? But it's a full sense of loss,
Mm.
right? And so when your technology fails you in some way, and especially if somebody else does it, it's like not your own fault. Like you might feel even better about a phone you threw in the river. But when somebody takes your phone and then throws it in the river, you're like, who are you? What are you doing? So I'd love to hear, what was your experience of being hacked on Facebook a little bit? Something that you can share to help others who this is happening more and more for.
Yeah, it was very scary. And thankfully, because I was in this mindset of ready to sit down and revisit my stories, I caught it very quickly. And so Facebook's not something I make a habit of getting on regularly. Actually, social media in general, I have a really good discipline with it. It definitely affects our mental, you read my bio talking about neuroscience. It definitely messes with us in that way. So I keep a distance from it. And thankfully, I, at this time, caught it within a few hours because first I logged into Instagram and I honestly think I got distracted. I think I was meaning to log into Facebook and I logged into Instagram and I saw a danger screen that was like suspicious attempt login from Nigeria. We don't think this was you. It wasn't. And then I was like, oh gosh, let me check my Facebook. And as I went into my Facebook, that's when it got really scary because it'll asterisk out your full default email and
Yeah.
show you like just a couple letters. And the first letter was starting with a W. Like, I don't have anything that starts with a W. What's happening? This isn't mine. How can I get back in? Because it was like suspicious login attempt, have a code sent to your email. Here's your default email, W something, 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 something. Like, this isn't me. How am I supposed to, what am I supposed to do? And so I will say that I let fear and urgency, get the better of me for maybe about an hour or so. But almost immediately, I reached out to my network. At this point, my boyfriend was with me. He was looking things up. We are going really quickly. And we had seen, I guess, an old article that said a bunch of 50 million Facebook users were affected. And so at this time, I'm thinking, okay, it's not just me. A lot of people are. I'm on the board of directors for National Speakers Association, our Georgia chapter. And I thought, if I'm affected, let me reach out to this great group and send a message to the chat. And everybody's like, I'm not affected. I'm not affected. Are you sure? I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, oh no. Like, they're like, oh, a couple of years ago they did that. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was probably a old article. I'm the only one affected. What am I going to do? I don't have anybody that is into tech like this. And thankfully, an angel of a man that's just joined our board, he's a web developer and was helping us with our website, donated an hour of his time for me. And as at the end of that call, we still didn't figure it out all the way, but I think it was this very sophisticated hack where,
Mhm.
and I was even like, right clicking on the URLs and pasting them to see if they checked out. Like I've taken my internet security classes. I was like, okay, I'm doing everything right. But they had placed something that I'm, not totally well versed in, but I guess they had placed like a cookie. And so even if I went to www.facebook.com myself, it was triggering that cookie. And so I would go through the email that looked very real, or I would go through Facebook myself. And the only way that I could figure out that it was hacked is that when I would say secure my account and push that button, it would want to verify my credit card information. or send me an email to my .edu, which hasn't been a primary in, like, I can't access a .edu at this stage. I'm in
Okay.
my late 30s. Like, that's been a really long time.
I'm graduated. I'm done.
Like, that's over with. So I went to bed that night convinced that I had lost the best kept record of my 5 years abroad. And I said, you know what? It's okay. It could have been a lot worse. You probably have duplicates of the best stories anyway. No, you can't see the date. No, you don't have it with all the pictures, but it's okay. And I really made peace with it. And I truly think that that is, when we make peace with the chaos like that, and when we make peace and have the good perspective with the bad thing that happens, I've
Mhm.
seen miracle after miracle after miracle happen in my life and other people's lives. So I
Now,
let
now,
it
what
go.
do you mean by make peace?
I made peace with it. I was like, it's okay. I went to bed like, if I never get back in, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a step. So I at the end of the night, I had managed to lock them out, but I had locked myself too.
Ooh,
So I was asking my friends, I was like, can you see my name on Facebook? No, nothing. It was totally locked. I thought, okay, if the best that I could do is lock them out, but I've locked myself out as well.
okay.
Okay, exactly. So I'm like, I stopped them. It probably won't get worse. I'll probably never get back into my Facebook. You can't call somebody, you can't chat with somebody. They do not make this easy. And this whole time too, I'd see other people get hacked, and I was really a little bit like, good thing that'll never happen to me. I'm so protected. So I really thought I had a lot of security measures in place. I was very dumbfounded. And I guess the biggest takeaways would be, one, if you put in security measures, say 6 years ago, that's about when I was traveling and I thought, I was state of the art security. Okay, well, times change and they change really quickly. So you need to be staying up to date. And then the second would be, obviously, I've learned this, you can back up your full Instagram account, you can back up your Facebook account. I haven't managed to successfully do that yet. I feel like it would take do it. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. If anybody's listening and you can figure that out, do that. Mine just sat there, spinning, downloading, downloading, downloading for days, and I guess I need to come back to it. But the big takeaways, I think, are making peace in that bad situation. And then I woke up the next morning and I was able to get in and verify my identity through Instagram, because
Oh,
Facebook had the cookie
yeah.
that made it impossible. But Instagram, and then
Didn't.
I knew it was real when they said, okay, we're going to, send an email address that you've never had on file. We're going to send you a code, handwrite it, make a video selfie, move your head back and forth, side to side. I was like, okay,
That's
this
the
is verifying
verification
my
procedure?
identity. What's that?
That's your verification procedure?
Yeah, well, that's a lot. Yeah, you did, to make sure you're a real person and like match your face, biometric, whatever. It
I
was a
think
lot
it's like the
better.
hostage situation when you hold up a newspaper to prove like it's today. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I wasn't thinking that at the time. I was just so grateful that I wasn't being asked to use my credit card as verification. I was like,
Yeah,
I know
that's
this is a
not gonna
scam.
yeah, I'm not gonna do
I
that.
know that's a scam. So yeah, they held my Facebook hostage. I held up today's newspaper with a certain code and was able to make it work. So it's crazy. I don't feel 100% out of the woods yet. So I keep telling the story, and I'm not able to change my password because I have to know the password they changed it to. Um, so I've been taking screenshots every night. Instead of getting on social media, I'm going on my social media and screenshotting everything. So I know that you can download it and have a better record, but tell me how you make that complete itself. Um, so that's my hacking story.
It's a good
Super
hacking.
fun times. I lost a whole week of just dealing with that, and I think it made it worse too, because the day prior, I'd gotten a message, or I'd gotten a piece of mail from my previous employer saying that, well, actually, I don't know if I should talk about all this, but hacking is out there and people are taking extreme measures to take things away from you. A writer friend of mine told me that their Evernote got hacked and they lost everything. I'm like, why are you hacking Evernote?
Oh, because there's everything in there. A lot of people store passwords in there.
Oh, well, you need an encrypted thing for that.
It should be, but this is the security part, right? I mean, the world just found that out, right? CrowdStrike, blah blah blah,
Mm.
and just that.
Yeah, that was like the same week. That was like the same week.
Wow, wow,
Like, what's happening?
wow.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So that happens, and then it just shows you like we trust a lot of these things, and they do. They have a 99+% uptime, but it's that 0.01%. That'll mess you up, right? Especially when it messes. I heard Delta like 9 days later was still delayed in flights,
Yeah. I
and
heard it was pretty bad.
we were just in an event in Cleveland, and 15% of the participants did not physically make it to Cleveland, directly related or indirectly related to that technical error.
That was my first thought, the events industry. When I heard the big
Oh yeah.
strike, I was like, wow. I knew a lot of people who were traveling that week, and it's
Yeah, and that's why all year long I've been putting an extra day in the beginning and the end of my in-person events, and every single time it's paid off. And my last one was we all arrived. I flew Seattle to Cleveland, and I got off at Cleveland, right? And 80% of the people are all standing around the baggage carousel when the belt stops.
oh.
And you're waiting like, oh yeah, is it just gonna stop? And like the siren will go off and it'll go again. Nope, no. And then someone starts talking, blah 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 blah. None of the bags made it to Cleveland, and apparently the belt broke in Seattle. So the belt that was
Mm.
supposed to get them from where we checked in to the plane, they never got there. And so, um, and this is where I think you tagged one of my posts. I air tagged my two bags recently. So now I could actually go back. I'm like, oh yeah, I air tagged them. I'm like, yep, there they are in Seattle. And
I
but
thought that was brilliant. I'm going to
this
be doing that from now on for sure. It was a great
this
idea.
this other piece, Christy, though, is like what I've been emphasizing a lot too: technique, right, and technology. So technology and technique, and the technology is an AirTag. Okay, now you know where the bag is. So I'm like, oh, I was like, this is brilliant. Okay, the second part though is technique, which is what do you do with this situation? So I could have panicked, and I should have because one of those bags have all the cables that I need to run my event that I set up for the next day. But as I listen, I'm like, oh, there's a red eye flight. They're going to put all the bags on the red eye. It's going to get here at about 5:30 in the morning, right? And we should be able to deliver it relatively soon. And so, luckily, one of my planners who was for the event went to the airport that morning and got my bag and returned by 10 o'clock, which was enough time for me to get everything done. But if that bag doesn't show up by 10, probably by about 3 p.m., like I'm sunk. Like everything that I'm there to do, I can't do, or I have to like start acquiring a whole bunch of other cables. There's a lot I forgot. There's a bunch of specialty cables in there that I wouldn't be able to do. There's like some stuff that I could get that are normal, HDMI cables, but some of those cables are specialty. Anyways, so that's what happened. And I think the key piece of that though is the remain calm attitude. Like in the middle of chaos and uncertainty, can you keep your wits about you and can you stay centered enough to know when does it really turn into a problem and is it a solvable problem still or not? Because at some points it becomes insolvable, right? Like I can't. That's what some of the people said. They went to the airport, they waited 4 hours, and they're like, I just went home after that. I'm not coming to Cleveland. And now it becomes an unsolvable problem. Except for we ran hybrid, so they were able to call in. They called in from their computers and their phones, and they still didn't really miss out. But they missed the in-person experience.
Mhm.
Which reminds me then too. Let's go to this. So COVID happened. What's happening around that 2020 time frame for you? I'm just trying. I heard a lot of you traveling. You showed up at your parents' place. So March 2020, where were you? What happened?
March 2020, I was still, so I was 5 months into living with my parents as an adult, as a leader in my field, ready to fully, I was stepping into my own. I'd had my first and biggest speaking opportunity overseas. I spoke at Mind Valley University 2019 in Croatia. And it was such an amazing event that it had me saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. This is the avenue for my stories. Everybody was transformed. It was the best day of my life. This is what I'm going to do. Moved back, and I moved back to my hometown of Marietta, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, for the reason that I'd been on this quest of courage, right? At first, it was Public speaking used to terrify me. That was an act of courage to do it the first time. Cliff jumping, I got asked to cliff jump. I got invited cliff jumping 2 days before my big talk I just mentioned. My talk was on courage.
Wow.
So, as much as I wanted to say no, I've had a lifelong fear of heights. I absolutely cannot do this. What was I going to say? Make sure you check out my talk on courage in 2 days because it'll be great. Like I had to do this. And there was karaoke, there was dance, there were all of these things. And then at the end of that was go back home. And now I lived in Florida before I embarked on this trip. So I hadn't been home since I was 17 and right before I left for college. But
Hmm.
my intuition was clear. It said, go home. So I
Wow.
was actually really grateful to be home when COVID hit because there's nowhere in the world I would have rather been than outside with all of our trees, our space. I had made the decision to come back versus a lot of people I knew at the time who were in the travel circuit who had that decision forced. But by 5 months of living with my parents, it was time for me to go, right? I love my parents very much, but it was time. And then
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
lockdown happened.
Um.
And my
Well.
parents took it very, very seriously. So they're telling me, sweetie, like, we don't want you going out at all anymore. It's okay. We're going to be here together. And I was kind of like, I've made it was together, together.
Like some shining in there. I like it.
Oh my gosh, that's how I felt at the time. And they're wonderful people. I feel bad making this joke, but it's true. And it's how I felt. And I called a friend, a new friend. I'd moved back. I hadn't lived here in 15 years. I didn't have a big network at all. One of my friends had moved back from Florida around the same time. We were, childhood friends. She moved back too. She's introducing me to some people.
Yeah.
And this friend at the time, I was really complaining to him, I think, just like, hey, I was going to come out. I was going to see you guys. I'm on lockdown. I can't leave. I'm on house arrest. And I'll never forget, I couldn't even understand. I couldn't even understand him at first. I was like, "What?" He had to say it like 4 times. It's like, "Well, I have an extra room." And now he had just the day prior had his roommate move out, and he was so excited to not have to share space with anybody. And now all of a sudden he's offering up his room. He was like 1 or a couple months at best just to get you out of there. And I was like, 4 weeks would be way more that I would say. I would never do that to you. I can't be here and do this and make a living and be under house arrest. And I won't survive. Um, and 1 month turned to 3 months, turned to 4 months. And by the summer, we had fallen in love. And now we live in
Ta-da!
this house. We bought this house 2 years ago together. And March 2020 was the start of a very different life for me. And I, have to make my face a little more solemn. I'm beaming every time I talk about it. I feel bad, but COVID ended up being a very beautiful time for me. And I'm very grateful to those who helped me get on my feet because within 2 years of
Well,
that,
pause on that for a second too. Why would you feel bad about something that's like one of the greatest things in your life?
you have to be careful, I'd say, who you have that perspective around because not everybody had a good time at all
Well, I
during those
understand that.
times.
No, I mean, it was the, it's a horrible, right? That's the best of time. It's the worst of times, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
but I don't think you should feel bad about something good coming out of it. Like I don't feel bad at all. Like this was the best thing that could happen for my business. Like
Yes.
it was an idea I was sitting on for like, 20, 38 years and nobody would do it. And finally, thank God, the world caught up to like something I saw, a long time ago. So I don't know. I'm just telling you, don't feel
That's
bad.
true. You do share that perspective. Yeah, I remember I was like, that was perfect timing for you. And I've talked to others who have had a really great time too, right? And it kind of goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. And of course, not everybody can control this. And, there was a lot of bad, but keeping that like, how can this be a good thing? Or what is the positive? Or how can I take this opportunity and make something come from it? And so while I showed up at my parents broke and jobless, without any clothes, without anything, without network, I did my thing. I met people. I was able to, even in the time. So I'd started this idea. I saw all this fear going around now that I was outside of my parents' house. I was living with somebody I was having a ton of fun with. We were still in that quarantine time,
Yeah.
and everybody, didn't have a job at the time. Even people who had a job, it was paused for a while we figured out what was going on. And I thought, there's so much fear going around. What we need is something to change the narrative. So I started this passion project idea called Change the Narrative. And I brought together a group of creatives that I'd met through LinkedIn or Instagram or however that were local. And we started a project where graphic designers would design a template. And then somebody could take that template, pass it off in the mailbox, whatever, COVID friendly, and then make a mosaic piece of art around it. And so we wanted to go as far as putting them in parks. I thought
Mm.
it'd be really beautiful. And then the world picked back up and everybody had more, all the creatives had more marketing and advertising and creative work than possible. But through that, it led me into my gig in corporate advertising. And I did that for, up until very recently. I'm still doing some contract work for them too. And that's just another way that take something bad and put in some passion, put in some connection, put in some, peace and real intent. And that turned into a very lucrative new career for me. So
Is this, and maybe this is the story, but I'm just curious now, what was the most engaging virtual story that you have now from the last 4 years? Maybe a connection you made online or attending somebody else's program. I'm just curious.
the most engaging story.
Yeah, yeah. Engaging virtual connection or yeah, story. Yeah, well, I really
Mhm.
want to go to story. Most engaging virtual story you have in the past 4 years.
Well, I don't want to use the story I was just telling because I want to give you something new, but in truthfulness, it would be if my next greatest mentor came from that passion project. And so I'd roped in a creative director who was then at Definition 6, and I ended up doing some freelance work for them. And then I got 3 promotions within 2 years. I rose to the top of my department. I negotiated a 6-figure salary with no formal experience. That enabled me to buy this house and shoot up the ranks and have creative director on my resume. So as much as I'd like to give you another story, or I guess I could. The other one. And I use this in some of the trainings that I do, right? Because you talk about in virtual engaging meetings, I talk about engaging communication a lot, right? And so how can you reach out to somebody in a cold email or LinkedIn DM and make it, something that they respond to and make it a fruitful connection?
Yeah.
So I still do, but I've paused it for a while. I wanted to give a TEDx at the time. And so I'm doing my research, looking for who, curates, who's on the board, who does this, that, and the other. And I found one woman who was the then president of National Speakers, our Georgia chapter, Panline Miller. And she had a great banner image of her hands up, victorious on top of a mountain. And I learned it was Mount Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
So I reached out, I was like, wow, that's great. And so here's the connection point. I reached out to her, and instead of making it about, I want a TEDx, I want this, whatever, I made it about her and something I knew that she loved. Hey, that's so great. I've been overseas. The first thing I would always do is go to the highest point in every new city. What mountain is that? That's so cool. I've just moved back. I'm looking to connect with female leaders. Next thing I know, she's welcoming me as her free guest to a main stage programming event. And then 1 year later, I was on the board of directors. So I have 2 great stories that come from cold connection virtually and show that it is possible to form good connections. And on that, please don't say, I just wanted to, or I'm reaching out. Like, look for the connection in your communication, and I promise you, you can be more engaging than you ever thought possible.
My theory is that we're all just friends. Maybe we haven't met yet.
I like that.
And maybe you saw that at MPI probably. So what do you see in the future? What do you see for virtual or hybrid or Christy in the future? What's kind of, what do you envision next?
Those are two very different questions. What do
Here,
I
I'll even
envision?
stall for time. We got a Kuzgun666 who's chatting up a storm on one of our live streams. I just want to give him a shout out, him or her, a shout out. Okay, go ahead.
Um, what's the future hold? So I would love to see the future of, we'll start with virtual meetings or hybrid meetings. I would love to see them take out a lot of the inconvenience and bring more convenience to our lives, right? We don't always have to go somewhere in order to get something done. And I love the way that, post 2020 has opened us up to that, just like you were saying. And being overseas, I was a digital nomad. So when I got the gig at the corporate advertising, as a copywriter, I was just like, okay, this is great. Everybody's caught up to me. I'm used to working from a laptop from anywhere. And I love being able to have that added convenience. Now, as somebody who really thrives on connection, and like I said, two big connections has come virtually, so it can happen.
Yeah.
But when you get in person with an audience or being in front of an audience as a speaker, there's this tether of connection that happens.
Mm.
And it is my favorite feeling in the world. It's the best energy in the world, in my opinion. And I don't think that virtual can replace that. But by helping reduce our strain and inconveniences, we can then be more intentional, I feel, when we're in person because we're not drained. We can be at home for, the more everyday tasks. And then when we're in person, we can focus on maintaining that connection. So I'm thrilled about it. And in terms of what the future holds for me, well, I'm going after a book deal and some pretty big stages. I would love to balance. I'm talking with some people about doing some monthly webinars with their organization as well. So for me, I have the same balance, doing some virtual and then really saving the times for when I need that connection. Like, let's go to an in-person event for that.
Genius. All right, we're on to the cool news speed portion of our program. Let's see. This is called the speed round. So I just want you. I've got like a collection of questions. I want you to answer them as fast as possible. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Best moment of chaos.
Uh, cliff jumping.
Best moment of peace.
Mm. Making peace with losing my Meta accounts and waking up the next day and having them.
Best advice about Facebook.
Figure out how to back up and then send me an email. Tell me how.
Oh, I actually have the chat here. I actually chatted that part of here. What's your favorite video editor?
Adobe Premiere.
I'm a DaVinci Resolve fan, but Adobe Premiere is an amazing piece. What's your favorite story you love to tell?
I love telling the story of being asked to cliff jump just 2 days before my talk on courage and being forced to face that fear.
I wish I had. Oh, wait, watch this one.
I was expecting like an ooh, so that's pretty good.
It's pretty close. You said health is your greatest wealth. What's the health that you appreciate the most?
Oh gosh, I'm so grateful for my digestion healing. I was unable, this is a quick round, digestion healing. And final answer.
Oh, wait, do I have this button? Oh yeah, that's a good button. Best country you visited?
Croatia.
Croatia. Who wouldn't have guessed that? The best lesson you learned in Bali?
Hmm. I can let go of everything and still be all right.
Aw. Wait, where did my button go? Oh yeah. Oh, there we go. Timing. Timing's everything. Okay, and the best change the narrative connection you made?
That would be with Tom Hinkle, who ended up being my mentor and advocate for 4 years and teaching me the ropes of advertising.
Oh, well, there you go.
Appreciate you, Tom.
Christy, if you could get people to magically remember one thing from this interview, what would it be?
You are braver than you think you are.
Fantastic. Christy, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing some stories. I hope you have video of that cliff diving somewhere. You should use it in your keynote if you don't have it. You should get
Oh,
it.
I have it.
Oh, of course you do.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you. You're not going to Influence this weekend, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but you should plan to go next year. So
I
Thrive
am.
is
I
in
am.
Thrive is I think it's Thrive is in Orlando and Influence is going to be in Scottsville, Arizona. Oh, it's going to be where Dan Schinder. I was just giving a shout out to some other. He's a NSA Arizona member. So no matter what, I hope to look forward to seeing you either in the metaverse or the real verse. So sound good, Christy?
Sounds great.
Excellent. Thank you. We've been here with Christy. Thanks, Christy.
Thanks, John.
All right. Well, we've been here on the Engaging Virtual Meeting podcast with Christy Renee Stehle, who says, don't let your Facebook account get hacked. And think about what's magic, what's a story in your life that you want to tell. Hey, if you're on here, be like my friend Kuzgun666. Subscribe, share, like, or comment. Kuzgun, I think, might have a little bit of a crush on Christy. I don't know if that's true or not, but she's taken. So anyway, subscribe, share, like, comment, and make sure. And if you want all the episodes of this podcast, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Subscribe. We just crossed over I think 1,000 downloads. So thank you to everybody who's ever downloaded any one of our episodes. And if you want to figure out more about how to be engaging, this year's conference, October 1, 2, and 3, is for the first time hybrid. You can come live in Seattle, see behind the scenes action how we do it, or you can be virtual and see it. And for $97, of course, you get all the recordings for it. Go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON and register. And I will make sure and see you next time. See you later.
Don't we start people and keep old people? Show you